يا رب لك الحمد حتى ترضى ولك الحمد إذا ما رضيت ولك الحمد بعد الرضا ولك الحمد أبدا أبدا أبدا. فالحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ ولدا ولم يكن له شريك في الملك ولم يكن له ولي من الذل وكبره تكبيرا. الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا. والحمد لله الذي نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ به من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبد الله ورسوله أرسله الله تعالى بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله وكفى بالله شهيدا. فصلى الله عليه وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. ثم أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وإن كل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. يقول سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم بعد أن نقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: والشعراء يتبعهم الغاوون ألم تر أنهم في كل واد يهيمون وأنهم يقولون ما لا يفعلون إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وذكروا الله كثيرا وانتصروا من بعد ما ظلموا وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. واللهم ثبتنا عند الموت بلا إله إلا الله. واللهم اجعلنا من الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. آمين يا رب العالمين. Inshallah, in today's khutbah, I'd like to share with you some brief reflections from the last ayat of Surat Shu'ara. Probably we won't get through all of the last ayat, but just some aspects of this that I think are very important for all Muslims to be aware of. It's one of the few instances in the Quran where Allah has a very comprehensive commentary on what you can call nowadays the entertainment industry. But before we talk about that, just some things about Surat Shu'ara itself. This is Surat Shu'ara, the 26th surah of the Quran. And it's beautiful for a number of reasons, and one of them is that it actually continuously repeats legacies of previous prophets, one after the other, after the other, after the other. Musa alayhi salam is mentioned in some more detail than others, but there are multiple prophets talked about one after the other. And what's really remarkable about them is that even those who memorize the surah, they'll notice that what the prophets said, what all of them said, is identical almost. So the words are actually repeated over and over and over again. For instance, a phrase like فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُونَ, have taqwa of Allah and obey me, is repeated. Now these prophets are very far apart. You have Nuh alayhi salam, you have Hud alayhi salam, and there are eons, centuries, and millennia of a difference in the times in which they came. And yet the Quran is quoting them with identical language. It's quoting them with identical language, which is really remarkable. It's something to think about. And that's one of the testimonies that Islam has always been the same. Right? These people came to different generations, different societies, different cultures, different regions, different eras, even different languages. But when Allah translates their message to us in the Quran, He uses exactly the same words. So they had complete consistency in their message from one to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. Incidentally, since the Christian faith is now being more highlighted as we approach Christmas season and all of that, on a side note, one of the things that we don't debate with Christians, and we shouldn't necessarily go back and forth with them about Islam versus Christianity and all of that. But if they do ask you about your faith at work, and a Christian fellow, a friend of yours, is asking you about Islam and why you believe what you believe and things like that, look, one of the biggest things that gives us confidence in our faith is the consistency of Islam. In other words, we believe that Ibrahim alayhi salam, Musa alayhi salam, Isa alayhi salam, all of them preached the same message. Their God is one, their message is one, they preached the one and the same thing. And actually, if you look at the Christian faith, one of the most interesting things about them is they single Isa alayhi salam out. All across the different denominations, they single out Isa alayhi salam, they single out Jesus, and apparently his message is different from all the others, according to them even. Right? God is one. Never before has God ever, speaking of a son of his that is going to be sacrificed for the sins of humanity. That message was not preached by Ibrahim alayhi salam, nor by Musa alayhi salam, nor by any other prophet, even in their own book. You know, like, and I asked a fellow one time, a minister, I asked him one time, you know, none of these prophets that you believe in talked about the coming of the Son of God. None of them ever talked about it. If it's such a big deal, it's the biggest thing that ever happened according to you. This is the one instance, this is one event, the birth of Christ, according to you, is the one instant now humanity has a hope of being saved. So this is the biggest thing in human history according to you. And yet none of the prophets that God sent before ever talked about it. I don't understand. How does that work? You go, well, no, they did talk about the Comforter. And I was like, how does the Comforter equal Son of God? They weren't clear if it's going to be the Son of God or not. I don't understand. Right? But we don't have that problem. Previous prophets, they spoke about one ilah. They spoke about obedience to Him. They spoke about leaving evil deeds. They spoke about the akhirah. They warned nations that they will be destroyed if they disbelieved in prophets. And it's consistent. It's the same. And so it's very easy for someone who believes in previous prophets to accept Islam because they see that immediate consistency and honoring. The other thing is, you know, in the age of marketing, it's like my product versus your product, right? But what does Islam do? The beautiful thing about Islam is it's not my prophet versus your prophet. It's not Jesus versus Muhammad, ma'adallah. They're all one jama'ah. They're all one people. They're one ummah. And they are brethren to each other. And the covenant even Allah took from them is that if another prophet comes among them, that they will confirm the previous one. That they'll keep on confirming one after the other. So they're actually part of one group. We're the ones who think of this as competition. There's no competition. And even when Allah mentions تِلْكَ الرُّسُلُ فَضَّلْنَا بَعْضَهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ, that we took some messengers and we gave them preference or some favors over others, it actually is only for Allah to determine who stands where. You know, and Allah highlighted, for example, I gave something special to Dawud alayhi salam. And there's a difference for us to understand the difference between tafriq and tafdeel. لَا نُفَرِّقُ بَيْنَ أَحَدٍ مِّن رُسُلِهِ. We say that explicitly in the Quran. We don't distinguish, we don't make tafriq. What that means is we don't say one is a messenger, the other is not. One is good, the other is not that good. We never say that. That's tafriq. But Allah Himself did tafdeel, which means some were given some special favor, somebody else was given some other special favor. What was given to Musa alayhi salam is unique and different from what was given to Isa alayhi salam, etc., etc. They're all separate, they're all unique, right? And that's up to Allah Azza wa Jal. Now coming back to this, one of the reasons I mentioned that, the consistency of the messages of all previous prophets, is that of course messengers are trying to attract an audience. They're trying to make sure that people hear this message. And in that sense, there's a connection, there's a parallel between what a prophet does and actually on the opposite end, what an entertainer does. Because an entertainer also wants to get an audience. And messengers are also desperate to make this message heard to their entire audience. But the entertainer, what he does, to make sure that his audience keeps coming back, he has to come up with a new message, a new song. He can't sing the old song because they already heard it. They're like, give us something new. What is that? I'm not coming back to the same concert again. I've already heard that song. I'm not downloading this movie again. I already watched this one. When's the next movie? What's the next thing? So entertainers need to continuously come up with something new. That's part of the problem they have, right? Otherwise they become irrelevant. Like even the younger audience that's sitting here 2-3 years ago, what was the #1 song that was platinum? Who cares and who remembers? Because they disappear into thin air in 2 weeks. And the only way these artists can stay relevant is they come up with something else. Contrast that with the message of messengers. The messengers, alayhi salatu wasalam, and like take the case of the ideal case of Nuh alayhi salam, he's with his people for a very, very long time. But he's not interested in changing his message to attract a new audience. He's not interested in maybe if I just kind of, present something else for a change, to lure them in with some other means or something. No, the message is the message. It is what it is. And it's not like he had a very involved, intricate message, alayhi salam, a very clear message, a straightforward message, which can be summarized like Surat Shu'ara does in like very few words. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُونِ is the summary of it. Have taqwa of Allah and follow me. That's all I'm asking. That's all there is to it. There's some very basic teachings that were given to the Prophets, alayhi salatu wasalam. What we learn from that as da'is and as carriers of Islam is that we don't need to be worried about impressing people. We don't need to follow the way of entertainers. We don't need to worry about what they're going to think. We need to worry about what the message itself is. We have to stay genuine to the message itself. And we have to believe that the word Allah gave us, the Quran, and the profound teachings of His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they in and of themselves are compelling enough, powerful enough, captivating enough, that you don't need to do any extra work on the outside. If you can be genuine to the text itself, the revelation itself, then it's compelling enough to anybody who has an ounce of decency. They'll be attracted to it anyway. I mean, this is a message that, I shared this with you a few weeks ago or months ago when I came and gave a khutbah about Surat al-Jinn. The jinns are just passing by. They just heard Quran, right? And that was enough for them to just pull over and be mesmerized and captivated. So now here,